I already did? Okay. I love this slide. This was a Time magazine ad from 1947. Yeah, just take that in for a minute while I read to you. DDT was first synthesized in 1874, but its insecticidal properties weren't discovered until 1939. And it was used with great success in the second half of the World War II to control malaria and typhus among civilians and troops. After the war, DDT was made available for use in agricultural insecticide and for common household use. In 1962, Silent Spring was written by American biologist Rachel Carson, and this began the era of awareness of DDT's many toxicities, at least in the animal kingdom. Well, according to this, DDT could be put on your produce, be put on the meat, it could be put near the baby, you could put it on anything you picked out in the field, the cattle. It was good for me. I'm thinking there was probably a song that went with that, but I don't know what it was. Can you hear the jingle now? If DDT was thought to be good for me, what doctor or what public health agency would list it as a cause for the paralysis that was ripping through the country in the 1950s? Well, there were only a few doctors at the time who were publishing to this effect, but they were ignored, like I said, and they were called quacks. This is a graph that depicts the parallel between polio epidemics in the USA and tonnage of DDT and pesticide production in the USA between 1940 and 1970. What we see is the blue line here is polio. It's magnified by 7.7, but that's basically the pattern. Look at the pattern here. And then the dotted line is DDT and other pesticide production by the ton. Polio appeared to be a vicious entity from the late 1800s until DDT was coincidentally phased out of the agricultural industries in the USA. But that didn't happen until after a vaccine for polio was well accepted as a savior for humanity in 1954. The United States was considered free of wild polio as of 1979. Insects were believed to spread polio outdoors and in the home. In response to this belief, fearful parents put DDT all through the house. They put it on drawers, they sprinkled it on windowsills, lunch boxes, directly on sandwiches, in water to rinse clothes, bedding, and mattresses, and painted it on the walls of children's rooms. You could even buy DDT impregnated wallpaper if you wanted to. It's no wonder the well-to-do had such a high problem with polio, is it? Can we play this video now? These are children walking to school in the morning, being sprayed by DDT. Walking in the fumes at lunch, they're being fumigated while they're eating. DDT. While swimming in the summertime, guess what? DDT, it's good for me, Dive under it. Kids thought it was good for them. They wanted it. DDT was everywhere. It was in all kinds of household products that you could buy just about anywhere. This was a Canadian documentary. Thank you. I feel like I'm going to knock something over back here with all my pacing. Oh, my turn. This was just another picture that was in National Geographic magazine, DDT truck going up the beach to spray people. In 1951, Albert Sabin noticed that the American military in the Philippines had astonishingly high rates of polio, approximately 1 in 79 recruits. Yet he was utterly mystified as to why that would be. And he was even more mystified why the Filipino people considered polio the white man's disease at that time. He also noted similar coincidences in China and Japan. This slide is a World War II Army poster from the collection of the National Museum of Health and Medicine at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. And this tells you how to delouse an incoming recruit with DDT. What you do is you loosen all their clothes up and you get the DDT sprayer and you go down the neck, up the sleeves, down the pants, up the pants. You sit them down, you fumigate their head thoroughly, you flip their hat over and you spray it into their hat. Villages near military bases were not affected, even though in many cases local people were intermixing with the soldiers and their families. It's not very mysterious, is it? Well, DDT, refined sugar, flour, tobacco, and vaccines were all part of not only the American way of life, but the soldier's way of life. And we know that military recruits are heavily vaccinated, often with experimental vaccines. DDT can be a sole cause of poliomyelitis, or it can be an additive factor. DDT is known to induce symptoms that can be indistinguishable from poliomyelitis, even in the absence of a virus. If there's one of my references that you read, please read this one. This is a fascinating paper. The other thing is DDT toxicity can give anterior horn in the spinal cord changes, just like polio. It can cause respiratory failure, just like polio. It causes spasm and flaccid paralysis, just like polio. Aside from that, DDT enhances the release and intracellular multiplication of polioviruses, as we see here in this paper written by Janice Gablix in 1967. And what she did is she looked at various insecticides and measured the amount of polio multiplication and release from different cells after they were treated with different insecticides. And she saw that the yield per cell of poliovirus increased 37% and 90% in the presence of DDT, depending on, trying to find my pointer here. Does anybody else see my pointer? Oh, wow, it's hiding there. It's afraid of DDT. Okay. So here we have the control, and then here we have 20 micrograms per ml, and here we have 40 micrograms per ml incubation with DDT, and the yield per cell of poliovirus nearly doubles with the 40 micrograms. There were other pesticides. One was called kelthane, and that induced a 4 times increase in poliovirus production. And there was another one called carathane, which induced an 18 times increase in polio production. And this is in cells. This isn't in people. This is in petri dishes. Well, what's the reason for this? I don't know for sure, but I think it's probably because DDT has a direct toxic effect upon mucosal and gut flora, and that gave polio an adaptive advantage in the digestive tract. Also, perhaps because DDT greatly depletes body stores of vitamin C, which is needed not only to process toxins, but also viruses. This is a description of DDT poisoning. Tell me if you think this sounds very different from poliomyelitis. Acute gastroenteritis with nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea, usually associated with extreme tenesmus, runny nose, cough, and persistent sore throat, followed by persistent or recurrent feeling of constriction or lump in the throat. Now, when people present to the hospital with constriction or lump in the throat or any throat problems, they thought they were developing bulbar poliomyelitis. Occasionally, the sensation of constriction extends substernally to the back and may be associated with severe pain in either arm. Arm pain was a symptom of polio. Pain in the joints, generalized muscle weakness, which was another symptom of polio. Apprehension and exhausting fatigue are usual. The latter are often so severe in the acute stage as to be described by some patients as paralysis. How could doctors possibly have distinguished a case that looked like this from polio? They didn't. It would have been called polio, and it would have been treated as such, probably with a crippling outcome.